Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, around the world to the Cameron Files, broadcast exclusively on KGRAradio.com every week on Tuesday night right here. You can't get it anywhere else. Well, I guess you can get it later on Grant's YouTube, right, Grant?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, tonight we've got a mutual colleague and friend that is coming to the show. Larry Cekander, he's a wonderful guy from up in Missouri, and I've known him for many years. I love him to death, and I'm so tickled that you're going to have him on the program tonight. What can the listeners expect to hear on the Cameron Files tonight, brother?
Well, the big topic in ufology these days is metals, and we're going to talk about the most researched piece of UFO hardware ever. Well,
I've actually, if it's the one I'm thinking of, I've actually been blessed to have it in my own hands on more than one occasion, and every time I do, it's overwhelming, the possibilities of what you're holding, and you just can't get past that, Grant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've got mutual friends who are out getting some metals worked on, I heard, and it's kind of under wraps right now, but I'm looking forward to a lot of these metals and what's going to be found or not found, in the coming days. So let's get to it. I'll toss it over to you, and then we can start to get this train on the track here.
Okay. Good evening. It's October 23rd, 2018. This is Grant Cameron, and you're listening to the Cameron Files. As always, thank you for taking some of your valuable time to listen. Fasten your seatbelts for takeoff. We're about to go very, very fast. Just a little heads up for next week. I'm having my election show, and on the show, we're going to have Joe Bookman, who was the moderator for the citizens' hearing. We are going to have the man, his name is Damon Steer. He's a famous reporter in New Hampshire who will go down in history as being the guy who asked Hillary Clinton the UFO question. And the third person on the show will be George Cleveland, who is the grandson of former President Grover Cleveland. And we're going to be talking about elections, about UFOs, and about New Hampshire politics, and about this most recent move to have a hearing with the Senate Armed Services Committee. But tonight we're going to talk about metals. 3 days before the famous Kenneth Arnold UFO sighting that started the modern era of UFOs on June the 21st, 1947, there was an incident that took place over the sky over Maury Island in Puget Sound. There was two witnesses who were harbor patrolmen on a boat near Maury Island, and they saw 6 donut-shaped objects in the sky. According to the witnesses, one of the objects dropped substance that resembled lava or white metal into their boat, breaking a worker's arm and killing a dog. They were approached later by men in dark suits, told not to talk about it. The U.S. Air Force actually got some pieces of it, were flying it out. The plane crashed, which started a great conspiracy theory about what was going on there. So metals have been around for longer than big UFO stories. It started with what are called extruded metals, and there have been all sorts of reports of metal recoveries related to UFOs. I even have my own piece. The Canadian government actually investigated a lot of metal from 1950 to 1954. They got it from U.S. authorities to do investigations on the metal. And here, a race will play in just a second. Here's an audio clip of James Smith, whose father, Wilbert Brockhouse Smith, ran the Canadian government flying saucer program. And James Smith talks about the arrival of metals coming into Canada from U.S. authorities. So, Race, can you play that clip?
Between the living and the dead. Many times I do remember blue military cars pulling up to the house and leaving packages of things for him to do metallurgical analysis on. And we'd asked him what they were, and he said they were chunks that unidentified things that the military had either shot down or found.
Unidentified things, or did he actually use the word flying saucers? Or
yes, on a couple of instances, I remember packages about the size of a loaf of bread coming in. The box would contain a chunk of metal that he'd been told that the Air Force had shot a chunk off of a flying saucer, and they'd already done some analysis of it. And would like him to have a go at it too. So
now, was this the American Air Force, or the Canadian Air Force?
Well, I don't remember what color the plate it was, but I mean, it came from the States, whether it was delivered to the house by a Canadian.
Yeah, so it came from the States. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
In the last few months, the subject of UFO hardware has again become a big topic with the announcement by To the Stars Academy of their ATOM project to recover and analyze what they refer to as UAP metals. Tonight, my guest, Larry Cekander, who studied mechanical engineering, will be with us. He is the owner and lead researcher on the one piece of metal that has been analyzed more than any other. It's referred to as the Rosetta Stone of UFO research, and Larry has published a book called You Can Only Go As Far As You Can Push, The Bob White Legacy. Our guest tonight, Larry, has been on the UFO Hunter Show, UFO Files, Jane Goodman Presents in the UK, and many radio interviews. Now, welcome, Larry, to my show, The Cameron Files.
Well, thank you very much, Grant. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate the work you've done. I mean, we got together a little while ago setting up for the show, and you sent me, I don't know how many pages of material, just tremendous amounts of material on this one piece of metal. Can we go from the start? It was owned by Bob White back in 1985.
Bob
Can you start
the
story of how that piece was recovered?
Okay, Bob was an entertainer, and he was doing road shows and stuff with his band. He was supposed to open a club in Denver, Colorado, called the King Cole Club. When he got there, the club wasn't ready to open yet, so he decided to take a trip, take a little vacation down to Vegas. He run across the young lady in the bar, and they just hit it off, and they took off down to Las Vegas. A little bit west of Fruita, Colorado, on old Route 6, the lady was driving, he was asleep. She saw this big light, and she woke him up, and he said, that's nothing, it's a mining light or a railroad or whatever. He went back to sleep. A few minutes later, she woke him up again and said, no, that ain't no railroad light. So he got up and was watching it. As they got closer to it, it kept getting bigger. And finally, when he got within a few hundred feet of it, he reached over, turned the keys off on the car, and coasted up. Got out of the car, and what he described is a bright light on the ground the size of a 3-story building. But he described it as the size of a full harvest moon. The gal he was with was scared to death by this time. She turned the headlights on the car. As soon as that happened, this light, in a blink of an eye, this is what's Bob's words, in a blink of an eye, took off, shot into the sky, connected with 2 tubular neon lights like they were stacked on top of another. There was a flash or an explosion. The 2 tubular lights disappeared, and the light that he saw came back at him. He said he thought it was shooting at him. And he'd seen where it hit on the top of the hill. He followed the groove, found the object at the bottom of the hill. And that's the basic story of how he ended up with metal.
Wow. And he held it for a number of years. He apparently passed a number of lie detectors on this, correct?
He passed 4 of them, conclusively passed them.
As to this, yeah, go ahead.
As to what he saw, how he recovered this, and being lied to at Los Alamos, and he was told Los Alamos was definitely extraterrestrial in origin by the head scientist that did the original test on it there. He passed that part too. And when I first heard this story, I was as skeptic as you could be because I knew Bob. We were buddies. And I met him in '95, and we played music together, and we just became good. He's the best friend I think I ever had in my life. And I really miss him, boy. He was, we did breakfast every morning, him and his wife, and, we hung out, fished, hunted, played music, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. And
when he told me this story, like I said, yeah, Bob Wright, you've got a piece of UFO in your house. He said, yeah. He says, I got it in my closet. Yeah, okay, you got a piece of UFO in your closet? He says, yeah, that's where I keep it. So I'm waiting for the punchline the whole time. This is over breakfast.
Yeah.
Went over to the house. He pulled this thing out of the closet and brought it out there, and he had it in a gun case. In fact, I've still got the same gun case, and the piece is still in it. And when he unzipped this thing, it hadn't been cut, then it was pristine. The bottom and top were still on it. And I've worked with metals all my life, and I could not imagine how this thing could be made. And there's no there's no shop or aluminum factory that can make this thing, because we've asked. Yeah. You know, and they look at us. We've been run out of Alcoa aluminum. The guy runs out of the plant. But it's highly unusual, and that's the bottom line. You can't find another one. Nobody else can make one.
Yeah.
Huh? Go ahead.
Well, yeah. What was your first reaction when you saw it? Like, because you were skeptical, were you an instant sort of believer when you handled this piece?
No. I'm looking for a logical explanation on how it could be made. You know, I'm a common sense guy.
Yeah.
You know, you can tell me the story. That's fine. I'll listen to the story, but I want proof. You know, show me something that I can see, feel, touch, taste, smell.
Yeah.
You know, and then we'll discuss it. Well, he showed me something, and I could sure touch it, could sure see it, could sure smell it. And I had no idea. Like I said, I've been in the metalwork and fabrication since I was 14 years old, and I'm 70 now, and I'm still working with metals.
Yeah.
And there's no way that you can make this thing in an aluminum factory in an oxygen environment. It can't be done. The feathering effect on the outside of it is why.
Yeah.
Now the skeptics will come on board as soon as they see this thing, and I'm sure there's probably somebody in the chat room right now saying, "Well, that's from my machine shop, and it's grinding from underneath a grinding wheel." Well, it's been attested 13, 14 times now, some of the best laboratories in the world. If it was from a machine shop, there would be grinding residue left in the metal. Number one. Number two, it's aluminum. It's a soft metal. You cannot get enough friction to the pressure on aluminum to get it to melt. It will turn to powder or dust. And that's the end of that's the end of the machine shop theory. It can't be done. If you can show me, I got $1,000 in my pocket right now. You can make me one of them underneath the grinder wheel. I got $1,000 bill for anybody out there could make me one of them underneath the grinding wheel.
But I imagine people still say it, though.
Oh, sure they say. They see the picture, and they will swear up and down that's from a machine shop underneath the grinding wheel.
Yeah.
And you can sit there and talk to your blue in the face. You know, I ignore them anymore.
Yeah.
If this thing was phony or fake or could be duplicated, somebody in the last 25 years would have made one and debunked this case. Can't nobody debunk this case. It's that simple. You can't debunk this case because you can't show me another one.
Yeah. So you decide. Are you the guy that decides that we need to send it for analysis? Is that how it starts? So you see what in about 97, somewhere around there?
Well, it was 96 when I met Bob, and him and his bass player John Huey, and myself. We all decided that we needed to run a test off, so we took it up to Springfield to a lab up there and run a basic elemental, and it come back aluminum, silicone, calcium, and iron were the basic elements in it. And then, of course, that's not unusual in aluminum alloy. Those are common elements.
Yeah.
But then NIDS come along, the Bigelow's outfit, and that's Institute for Discovery Science, said they wanted to test it. So we sent them a piece. We cut the tip off of it and sent it to them.
So you're talking to Combe Kelleher there? Was it Combe Kelleher you were talking to there?
That was the second one. The first one was Pete McDuff. There was three people at NIDS. One was Pete McDuff. He was the first one. The next one was John Alexander. And the last one was Combe Kelleher.
Okay.
We dealt with all three of them. In fact, John Alexander called Bob and said, "It's not extraterrestrial. It's nothing unusual in it." After they had found 22 elements in it, right there, that makes it unusual because normally aluminum alloy only has 9 elements in it. 9 to 15 tops. They found 22. Then they tried to set it was a 360 aluminum alloy close to it. Well, that's bogus. There's no way. It's not even close. And then you got some of the most rare earth elements in this object, and you got strontium that matches isotope readings from the Mars meteorites.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. What's,
Mars?
Yeah, explain that Mars meteorite thing, how it fits with the Mars meteorite.
Okay, the Mars meteorites, there's 2 Mars meteorites recovered, one in Antarctica and one someplace else. I can't think of it right up the top of my head. Let me see if I can find it. Shigati meteorite is one of them, and then there's one that's just got a number. And the isotope rays is like 223 on one of them, and one is like 212 or 206, something like that. And anyway, Bob's falls right directly in between both the Mars meteorites and strontium. So, you know, that's a sign right there. There's something going on.
Yeah.
And then this thing had to be in a vacuum when it was formed, because there's no way in an oxygen environment that you can get aluminum to layer like this in sharp layered shads like a pine cone. Can't be done. And this thing was ejected. It was force flow ejection to an extremely cold environment under extreme pressure, and that's how the shads were formed. The layering on the outside came first, and then the metal solidified underneath the shads as it would come back to where it ended up. So, you know, there's just so much. Of course, I sent you all that stuff. I expect I kept you busy for a few days.
Yeah. You're up to 33 elements now, correct?
Right. You got 33 elements.
And NIDS, that didn't seem to affect them. I mean, did they test it 3 times, or is it just one test and they sent you this 360 explanation back? Yeah,
it was just one test. It was a double-blinded test. The scientist's name was Paul Fuhrer. He was head of material scientist at New Mexico Mines and Minerals.
Okay.
He did the test. They come up again, like I say, with 22 elements, and their totals don't match too. There's a 3% missing as far as their test results go.
Wow.
Yeah, there's not 100%. There's something in there that they missed or they couldn't identify. Or it could be a mathematical error. One of the 3. It could be in one of the 3. But we talked to Paul Fuhrer later after it was all done with, and he said, well, if I'd have known the story on this before we ever did the test, he said, I would suggest an isotope abundance ratio test, which is a definitive test, especially in strontium, titanium, chromium. Though they're either, it's like the gal with the rabbit. You either kill the rabbit or you don't. You're pregnant or you ain't.
Okay.
You're terrestrial or you're extraterrestrial. It's just that simple. And, you know, like I said, there's new tests being done now. I can't, not at liberty to say other than there's new tests going on right now because of contractual agreements with the labs. You know, so they're not being bothered.
Is this a definitive test that's being done?
No, there's a battery of tests being done.
Because you wanted one particular test done, correct? You wanted one test that would sort of...
I want the test I want done is isotope abundance ratio test on chromium.
And so explain that test. What does that prove?
Number one, chromium has an isotope. If it's off Earth, the isotope ratio is not the same as it is on Earth. A lot of extraterrestrial metals are not the same as far as their readings go between Earth isotope ratio and an extraterrestrial test. And some of them will convert to other materials. It's like a breakdown on a nuclear radiation. You know, strontium-90, and it will convert to something else after a certain length of time. Like I said, I'm not a scientist, You know, what I know, I've learned from just reading up on stuff. What I know is metals, what you can and can't do with them. And I know you can't do this in an oxygen environment. Now, show me a plant that's got cryogenics that has a forced flow of molten aluminum into a vacuum environment or an argon environment, might be able to make this thing. But that's the only way I can figure out how you could possibly do it on Earth. And then why would you do it?
Yeah.
Based
upon the sighting, do you think that if you look at the sighting, what do you think was going on there? Was it a sort of an object that part of the ship that they dropped, or did they just sort of put this out, create that vacuum situation that you talk about, and sort of to mystify people? What do you think was actually going on there?
Well, I've run soil sample tests on where this happened at a lab in Connecticut. Now, there's radioactivity in that soil. It follows the same nuclear breakdown as the Fukushima nuclear power plant explosion or a tsunami in Japan.
Okay.
The curve is the same. It's not naturally, it's not as high because it was in parts of me that have fallen off a long time ago. So I've had that soil here in the house for years. I'd be glowing in the dark. But and the object is radioactive to a low degree as gamma, beta, and fast neutron. Now, if you got fast neutron, that means there's only one way you can get that. You can get that from my nuclear explosion, a nuclear reactor, or cosmic radiation. Again, if it was from a reactor or an explosion, then parts of me had dropped off me and Bob years ago. We'd be, again, walking around glowing in the dark, if we were even alive still. So, it's a low level, but it is higher than the background. And we've had tests on that. I've had we've done bubble chamber tests on it.
Explain that.
And those are based
on that.
Huh?
Explain the bubble chamber test, because I saw the report you did on that. So explain to people what that's all about.
Okay, bubble chambers are used on our border for national security. They're used to track nuclear products that could be brought in a shipping container or through our border. And they're idiot-proof. If you've got somebody working on at the Border Patrol with minimum wage, they're not exactly scientists, and you got to have something that they can read. And if there's radiation present around a bubble chamber, they will instantaneously have bubbles in the chamber. It's either not there or it's there. And it's just that quick. It's extremely quick. And they can spot something. They carry them around containers and stuff in our ports. And again, like I say, these are idiot-proof. It's there or it's not.
You seem like you'd almost like you could write. You did a book, but it's almost like you could do a manual on how to analyze mysterious metals, because you seem to have done every sort of run down every road. Tried to cross all the T's and dot the I's on every single thing. You go through some of the analysis was done, and a question about the NIDS. Did NIDS return the piece, or do they still have the piece?
Yeah, we got the piece back from NIDS. A piece of it was used was destroyed in chemical analysis, but we got half of the tip back from them, and a report.
Yeah. And that's all posted, right?
It's all online. It's all in the book. It's in Bob's book. It's in my book. It's all online. I sent you some links there, at Pinterest and stuff. You got them up on your.
Yeah, we'll put it up so that people can find, because you do have an awful lot of material. All your material has been posted. There's no reports that have been held back or anything like that, right?
No, everything we've got, we haven't hit anything. The only thing that is not posted right now is what's going on right now.
Yeah.
But everything else is online somewhere. But the main stuff is on my Pinterest page. It shows the Los Alamos XRD test. It shows the NIDS test. Now, the interesting part of that is NIDS lied. We could prove that. Los Alamos lied. I can prove that. We had an XRD test, an X-ray diffraction test run in Missouri State University in 2009. David Lamb, a materials scientist up there in the lab, run the test. He seen the metal when we brought a sample of it, and just the bottom piece of it. He looked at it. He worked at Boeing. He said, "Oh, that's a piece of 747 wing." He says, "I've seen them before." So they set the thing all up, and they get on the computer, and he commences computing. And all of a sudden, he starts leaning over closer to the computer. I got all this on tape, too. Now, I've got a little camera going in the background the whole time.
Yeah.
He says, "There's something wrong here." It got the big dog over there to look at it. So they reset the machine. They run it again. Come up with the same thing. He says, "Well, that's not right." So they run it for the third time. So by this time, I'm curious. It's driving me nuts. I said, "Okay, what are you seeing?" He says, "There's showing an amorphous peak in the metal." Okay, I said, "What's an amorphous peak?" And that is a polycrystalline structure like glass. Now, we don't have that technology either.
Wow.
Yet, in 1996, the Los Alamos XRD report shows that amorphous peak in their test. And the NIDS test shows that same amorphous peak at the same position as the MSU's test. And since then, we had one more test run, a major test run in Sealy Corporation in Carolina. It's one of the top 5 labs in the world. And it showed up in their test, too. So I got 4 confirmed tests of this amorphous peak in this aluminum metal.
Is that unique to all metal? Is that unique? Is that peak unique to all metals, or we can't do that?
No, you don't find it in any metal.
Okay.
We can't do it. Again, it can't be done. They're just barely into the early stages of trying to do it. And but Dave said, Lamb, that was the guy that runs. He says, "I know of nobody or nothing that has this in it." Now, he said that on camera on UFO files. And Chris McIsaac, who was the other, or not Chris Ellis, who was our other scientist that did testing, he said it was a lot of metal doping going on, which is layering, where you take one element and you layer it onto another element to create almost a nanotechnology, possibly something to that effect. Again, this thing, the deeper we got into it, and the more lies that we caught them at, I know now that this thing is about as real as it gets, brother.
And what was their reaction? Like, did you bring this amorphous peak up to these labs and get them to sort of explain themselves?
Well, NIDS won't talk to us anymore. I'm not exactly on Mr. Bigelow's Christmas list. And Los Alamos don't even discuss, hey, you ain't going to get nothing out of Los Alamos because that's government run. Yeah. And the scientist that did the test at Los Alamos is now dead. He passed away a few years ago. But, we've been kicked around like the redheaded stepchild in the family for 25 years. And got the best evidence of anything out there going. Period.
Let's go through the list.
Period. Nobody could show anything like this.
Yeah. So let's go through the stuff that's absolutely unique. The amorphous peak is unique to metal. It doesn't appear anywhere. Have you got any of the isotope? Well, you haven't got the isotope stuff back. What else is like unique that you say you can't take aluminum and you can't form it that way? That's another unique. So how many unique features would there be that couldn't be duplicated?
Well, the main thing is making it. You can't make it. All the elements are found on Earth. I mean, that's been identified. They can all be found on Earth. But the thing is, using common sense, which nobody seems to use anymore, if you're building if you're making an aluminum alloy, and you're going to put 33 elements into this thing, what the heck are you going to use it for? Because the normal aluminum alloy only has, like I say, from 9 to 15 max. Yeah. And then you have these 33 elements. Now, a very small percentage of elements added to an aluminum alloy will change the characteristics of the alloy a lot. And that could be what's going on with this. This metal has never tarnished as long as we've had it. Aluminum normally will get a coating on it. This doesn't have a coating on it. It's still just as shiny as the day Bob pulled it out. It's not as slick. It was real slick because of the high silicone content in it. That's another thing. Most aluminum alloys do not have a 5, 6, 7% alloy or silicone in the alloy because it has a tendency to make the metal porous and basically soft. This metal is very hard. You know, it's a Vickers hardness scale in aluminum of 61 to 62, and that's very high for aluminum. It rings when you hit it. You know, a bar of aluminum normally sounds like go thud. This thing rings. It sounds like a tuning fork.
And that's from the amorphous peak thing, the crystalline thing? Is that what that's coming from?
I don't know. I don't know. The scientists, like I said, that found this had no idea that it even could appear in this, let alone what it was used for or why it's there, you know, or how it got there. You know, the last test we had done, like I said, was done at Sealy in Carolina. And I got an email from the guy, and this is a big wolf dog in the material science game, a guy by the name of Mr. Rudolph Olson. I got his email March 2015, and he sent this to me to describe the Bob White object in the simplest possible way. I think you could say it is an agglomeration of rapidly cooled droplet particles of an aluminum silicone alloy with such an unusual structure, I can only speculate on how it was formed. Rudolph Olson.
Wow.
Now, when you get a mainstream scientist that sits there and goes, duh, you got something to brag about.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what he's saying. I got no idea what it is. I got no idea how to make it. Have no idea where it come from. Even the Los Alamos test, they've had 19 times in their test, they say it's an unknown object of unknown origin. We had tests at Scripps Institute, and that scientist, see if I can find that here. That scientist said, if I can find it, there it is, in his email to me, next with email, okay. We have concluded that the sample is fabricated. However, there's no chemical composition in nature, planet Earth, the moon, Mars, or the asteroid belt that has such a high concentration of aluminum relative to the other elements. There's no natural substance, mineral, or meteorite with so much aluminum, and thus we conclude the sample is some kind of aluminum alloy manufactured here. This is a kicker. On Earth or somewhere else. That's the end, or somewhere else. Now, I've never seen anybody put that in a,
yeah.
You know, and this guy does all the testing for meteorites and stuff that are recovered at Scripps. His name is Chris McIsaac. And when we wanted to post that, they stopped the testing right then. He said, no, you can't do that, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, we're going to do that. And we did.
Good for you.
Because the whole idea is we want this out. We're not hiding this. I'm not going to hide nothing.
Yeah.
If the test come back and it doesn't show anything special, then it don't show anything special. But what I've got is already special. So I've already got a case, no matter what.
Absolutely. The one thing you pointed out, I think you maybe should point out to people again, everybody's sort of looking for sort of the mysterious metal that doesn't exist anywhere. And I think you pointed out clearly that it's the structure of the piece that wherever you go in the universe, the metals are all going to be the same. So people are sort of looking for some sort of mysterious metal that isn't here, and that's not going to happen, correct?
Yeah, the same elements we've got here in our solar system are found everywhere else in the solar system too. To find something that is unknown that'd really be a find. But if it's unknown, what is it unknown from? Where did it come from? You're looking for what you have. You work with the evidence and the material you have on hand. Now, if you don't do that, then you're spinning your wheels. I can speculate forever what I think this might be, but there's no proof. Like I said, I can tell you within 90%, 95%, how this thing was made. It was force, flow, pressure, cold, and vacuum. And it had all those elements had to be present to form this object. Now, like Brace said earlier, when he said he's held this object, and he smelled this object, there's a high sulfur content. Now, Bob described his contact or whatever he had, UFO deal, and he said there was either a flash or an explosion. He didn't hear anything, but there was a bright flash. Now, when you smell this object, it smells like fireworks.
Okay.
And that tends me to believe that it was force injected for a reason. Maybe they were refueling. Maybe it's a location device. It's sending out a signal that you can read with an EMF meter in two distinct frequencies. Oh, yeah.
And what's the frequency? Yeah. Do you know the frequency?
One's low AM frequency, like you can catch on the regular AM radio around 4 or 540. The other one we can't read. My meters won't read it.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was all in that material. Like I said, I sent you so much material, I overwhelmed you. I know that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're an expert on. You should actually be an advisor to these to the stars or NIDS and on how to do this kind of stuff, because you've been down. How many labs and what kind of money have you put into this thing over, say, 25 years or whatever you've spent? And you've just done this. This is your one piece. This is your whole life. This is this one piece, right? Well,
I was a musician, number one. I owned a boat repair shop in Illinois. I've worked hands-on mechanicing and whatever all my life. I started out as working on cars and one-day money in cars. I went to lawnmowers, and that was a little bit better money because you can fix them quicker.
Yeah,
and that's no kidding, man. You can do a bricks and strat and rebuild the dang thing in 20 minutes. and you use $4 worth of parts and you sell it for $50. That's pretty good money.
Yeah.
And I got into boat repair in the 70s, and that's what I stuck with until I basically shut the business down in 2000 when my mom got sick.
Okay.
And my health's not that good now. I'm 70 myself, so I've slowed down considerable. But I'm still kicking. I'm in the upright position, sucking in air, and that's all you can do.
And still working hard.
Oh yeah, well, I'm junking cars. Me and my nephew junk cars.
Oh yeah,
and making a nice little piece of change on that. Yeah. Keeps the happy meals coming in.
Yeah. So how much money have you put into this project over, say, 25 years?
Well, the building I bought down there where we had the museum, it's $75,000.
Right? You were going around the country with this piece, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I bought a bus too. But we started out in the building in Reed Springs, had a museum in there for 4 years. I bought the building for $75,000. I still own the building, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
But the city was giving us a problem, and I told them I didn't need them, and I closed the building down and pulled the bus up in front of the building and loaded the museum on the bus, and we toured the country for 4 years.
Wow.
Me and Bob. We're down here in the middle of Bible country. It don't take too much people to talk about UFOs and aliens, I guess.
And you go to Eureka Springs every year, right?
Huh?
You're at Eureka Springs every year?
Yeah, I have been. Yeah, every year. I've been going down there since 1997, every year.
There you go. So if people want to see the beast, they can actually see it. Yeah.
They ignored us down there, too. Like I said, redhead stepchild. Yeah, Blue Fairies.
Eureka Springs? I thought that.
At Eureka Springs, Blue Fairies ignored us like the plague.
Oh, my goodness.
And since he would, and we offered to come down and show this thing free of charge. So when I bought the bus, I bought a vendor's table every year, and I had all the goodies downstairs, and we had the bus parked in the parking lot up front, right in front of the door. UFO Congress. I don't think I was on his Christmas list either. But, that was our transportation to and from Eureka Springs. Big sign on the side of the bus, and you see, explain, see what Bob White has inside. Oh, yeah. Well, you get to a point that when you get kicked enough, you kick back.
Yeah.
And that was the point we got to.
Yeah.
And then when Lou died, we were never on bad terms with Lou, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But that was a clique down there. The same people every year, no changes. And when Dolores Cannon took it over, Dolores had me, she called me, he didn't know Bob was dead. And she called me up on the phone and said, is this Bob? I said, no. I said, this is Larry. I said, talk to Bob. It'd be damn long distance. And you have to get your super phone out. And we got to talking, and she said, well, do you still have the object? I said, yes, I do. I said, I'm still doing tests and stuff on it. So she invited me down in 2013, and I was second speaker out. I followed Ted Phillips, who Ted used to be our head of research.
Okay.
At the museum.
Yeah, I knew Ted.
Yeah. And with over 800 people, that was a big lecture. That was my first really big time doing any kind of lecture whatsoever.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm used to being on stage stuff, but not talking. Yeah. Just playing guitar or singing some barroom blues or something.
There you go.
But it just keep on going. That 2013 was when I met Race.
Yeah.
And Robin, when they were down there set up for the first time, or second time, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and Race have been, we're tight. You don't get any tighter. We're just good friends. Him and Robin, I've interviewed him on a podcast before, and he's interviewed me 3 times. And we're buds, man. I hate to see him move to Utah. I'll be honest about it.
Still got an Arkansas phone number though.
Yeah, you got an Arkansas phone number. I just told him when he called me up. I said, hey, Race. I said, you're pretty good. He said, you sitting in Utah talking from Arkansas. I knew he was good. I just didn't know he was that good.
Can we talk a little bit about the other pieces? You did some analysis you did some research tracking down other pieces that sort of verified your piece. Let's go through the pieces. The 47 or the piece from
1947.
Denmark.
From Denmark. Okay. 1947. This paper was declassified by Clinton in 2000, and what it is a declassified document from the Counterintelligence Corps, which is a forerunner from the NSA and the CIA and all that stuff. And the file number, for anybody who wants to look it up, because it is online, is 202085 UFO in Denmark. That's why you got to type in. It'll come right up on any search engine you got. And what it shows is a piece of material that was recovered in Denmark that looks exactly like the Bob White object, right down to the point is the kicker in it. The end of the object in Denmark and the end of Bob's object is exactly the same, right down to the little hook on the end. And I seen that for the first time in 2000 in Roswell. And the head of the museum down there called me into your office and said, you don't want to see this.
Yeah.
So she had the entire file. Clifford Stone had gotten it along with John Greenwald at the same time through the Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah.
and open that file up, and the first thing you see is Counterintelligence Corps alleged flying saucer from Denmark. That's what's on the cover page. You open it up, about the third page in, kaboom, and there's the object that looks just like Bob's. Only it's a Xerox. So the word I'm looking for?
The original.
Yeah, the original. I mean, it's not pristine as far as what you can see in it, but the point and the size and the shape.
Yeah, it does look.
It's there.
The same. Yeah.
You know, it's very well. Like saying, it's the point. It's the end points. That's the part.
Yeah.
And I mean, what are the odds of that? You know, I bought lottery tickets tonight, so that's about the same odds. You know, tomorrow when I hit the lottery tonight, I won't be out of UFO business.
There you go. Or you just like they say about the UFO business or the metal business. If you win $1 million, just keep going until your money's gone. It's just that's worked for me for years. How about the Ohio piece? You had this unique Ohio piece that was dropped. Talk about that piece that you tracked.
Okay, that's Benny Foggins. Benny Foggins is a Vietnam vet. His whole family has had contacts and UFO stuff going on for years. And his son heard noises outside, from the way I understand this. Went outside and he seen this object, the UFO. He shot at it with a shotgun.
Yeah. And
it took off. Well, the next morning he went out in the driveway. Here's this chunk of metal laying in the driveway. Now, I call it skyfall. In the middle of Ohio, in a driveway, in the wintertime, where do you get molten metal from?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, duh. I mean, that didn't blow off. That's not the bumper guard off of Grandpa's 53 Buick Special. That came from somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's laying in the driveway. Now, the other piece of metal from there is, Lord, my brain is overflowing tonight. I can't think of the name of that piece. Oh, Ed's metal. That was found similar to Benny's in a schoolyard down the road from where Benny lived.
Yeah.
Now, those have been analyzed. Phyllis Budinger did one of the tests on it. And in Benny's object, he's got 44 elements identified in his.
Wow. Is it aluminum as well?
One of them is strontium. And lo and behold, it is definitely off Earth strontium reading in his metal. Now, the metal, we don't have a whole lot of information on the Ed's metal. And the gentleman that was doing that research at the time, which he's passed away now, was Nick Ryder. He was a pretty well-known UFO researcher, and the Avalon group is what his name, what the group was he was with. Nick sent Benny Rendlesham samples from the Rendlesham Force.
Yeah, talk about the Rendlesham pieces, because there's a lot of people talking about that.
Those were tested the same place that Benny's object was tested at Sealy, along with mine and the Rendlesham stuff. All of it is basically the same elemental makeup, basic elemental makeups. They're all about the same. There's a few differences naturally in the readings, but the basic makeup from all over the country. One's in England. We got this piece that I got from Colorado. Benny's piece from Ohio, near Wright-Patterson Air Base. Ed's piece is the same way. Same area,
yeah.
You know, and everybody knows a lot of stuff's going on around Wright-Pat.
Yeah,
it has for years. A lot of experimental stuff. Like I said, I'm a common sense person.
How did the Rendlesham piece appear? Like, where did that come from? Because a lot of people are talking about that.
Well, the Rendlesham piece, there was metal left, shavings, that was recovered. And Nick Ryder got some from, I don't know who he got it from.
Okay.
Benny would know that. But the Nick Ryder got these pieces from Rendelstrom, and they'd done some testing, basic testing on that. Me and Nick had collaborated once he found out about Bob's metal, and we were in discussions back and forth, and that's how I met Benny. And then we started, me and Benny are working side by side now because our two metals, and his is being tested now too. Again, the same setup. And like I say, I can't say where it's being tested at because of contractual stuff going on, and the labs don't want to be identified at this moment, at this time, because they don't want to be bothered. And that's, that makes perfect sense to me. They don't want people bothering, what's going on. Well, when we find out, we'll tell you.
Any idea when that'll happen?
Well, it hasn't been going on that long yet, maybe a month. I'm figuring at least 2 more, maybe 2.5, before we start getting some basic reading and analysis back. Because this is high-end stuff going on. And you just can't do that overnight. It takes time.
Will that be definitive? Then you can retire once you get that test back? Is that going to be end the story, or do you have to do more tests?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the results are going to be. They could come back and be exactly what we've got already from our basic elementals. The isotope reads may not be different, or they may be different. We don't know. It's like I said, what I got and what we've got, what Ben's got, what I've got, we've got extraterrestrial readings in it now. We've got stuff going on in the metals that don't go on in any other metals.
Okay.
And like I said, all you got to do, you want me to go away? All you got to do is just make me one. That's simple. Run out to the garage. Run out to the garage, get the grinder going, and make me one.
Larry, let me ask you this. If it becomes so, say you get some major scientist lab says, this has got to be extraterrestrial, or it becomes like definitive, what do you do then? What's the next step if it becomes resolved after all these years that you were right, this thing wasn't made on Earth? What's the next step after that?
Well, if I get any money out of the deal, which is few and far between, I think Tahiti sounds good with grass skirts and a Mai Tai. That would probably be a good plan.
Yeah, movie contract.
I could deal with that. Yeah, in fact, I'd invite you down to the cold winter in Canada.
and you, if you keep going and you don't, it's going to Greenwald. Next,
I go
right?
to John when this is all done with. When I can't do anything anymore, or I kick the big one.
Yeah,
which it could happen any day now. Anyway, John gets all the information and everything we got on. John has been a friend of mine since he was a snot-nosed kid, 15 years old.
Wow.
And when I first met him online, I knew that kid was going to go somewhere, just the way he handled himself at such a young age. And he's not proved me wrong.
Well, he did a show on your piece, right? Did he do a show on your piece?
Oh, yeah. He was the first one. He's the one that turned UFO files onto us first time back in 2002 or 3, the first time he was on the History Channel.
Yeah.
And Dwayne Tudall was the producer, and John was part of the edit. John was just got into the TV stuff at that time. He was real new.
Yeah.
But the last one that he did in 2009, John was the producer on that, and he came to Kimberly City, and Bill Burns and his crew. And that's when David Lamb and Chris Ellis said what they said, which I've sent you those links too, I think, on the History Channel. If you show them, what they said on TV live. And it's, Grant, like I said, I don't know what you got to do to sit there to make somebody, of course, a skeptic, it don't matter. You're not going to change his mind no matter what to do. I mean, and I don't care about the skeptics, I really don't. You can sit there and say, oh, well, it's a machine. So, okay, fine. Make me one. That's what I got to do. Just make me one. Skeptic Magazine did a story after Bob passed away. I guess they thought it wouldn't be anybody still around. and they had some dingbat from up in the north part of around where you're at in Ordston, had worked in a steel plant. He wasn't even a fabricator. He was like I worked in the offices and they had some kind of product supervisor or something, and that was their expert. Wow. And he says, I've seen thousands of these things, the subject. He says, I got them in my yard as decoration. Yeah. And I said, well, yeah, really. And I was on there. As soon as I was on there, I said, are they aluminum? No. And basically, it was about 4 more quotes from him. Eon Harrison, for his thing, I went and became famous too. Eon Harrison was that dipstick's name. Dumber than a box of roll. Yeah, I mean, some of these people, Grant, and I'll say it quick, are just dumber than a box of rocks, and you could smack them upside, be like a mule and a 2x4. You hit a mule between the eyes, and his eyes across, and still do the same thing he was doing before.
Yeah, I agree.
The same thing with these skeptics.
Yeah, I agree.
So, you know.
Well, you convinced me. I'll tell you that. So as we end here, because we're headed back to race, you've got me convinced. I'm a big fan of what you're doing, and I'll be supportive of you. Give me your contact. Where should people go if they want to see this kind of material? Because as I pointed out before, you have a lot of material online that people can look at. So where would they go? Yeah.
Well, the Museum of the Unexplained Aerial Anomalies Research Group on Facebook. My personal page, Larry Cekander, on Facebook. Larry Cekander at Penrest has got a lot of this stuff up. Anybody got questions, message me, messenger, whatever. I'll try and answer anything people want to know.
Beautiful. It was an honor to have you, and thanks for all that you do, and hopefully it gets resolved.
That's why I named the book. You can only go as far as you push.
There you go.
You've been listening to the Cameron Files with Grant Cameron. Any rebroadcast or duplication of this program or program content without express written permission from the KGRA-DB is strictly prohibited. The Cameron Files, in direct cooperation with the internet website presidentialufo.com.